Welcome to Politics Done Right. This is not Egberto Willies. We don't know where Egberto
Welcome to
is.
politics. Welcome to Politics Done Right. This is Egberto Williams, your host. I was waiting for the entry to come in. Anyway, folks, we are going to have a great show for you today. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning, Texas. Good morning, United States of America. And of course, good morning to the world. We have a very special program today. But before we get started, how are the two geniuses in the studio doing this morning?
And good morning to Perth, Australia. There's got to be a listener down there somewhere.
There's somewhere, brother, somewhere.
Oh, we're about as psychotic as usual. Jack, what you
Okay,
got for us
that's
today?
Psychotic Tuesday.
Yeah, Psycho Tuesday.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the universal right to be wrong.
okay. Oh, I love that. I love
Okay,
that.
I did this when I did a rotation, a reproductive rotation when I was going to nursing school. I gave a talk on the trimesters and the way the abortion works, and when they would, when they wouldn't, and of course, it was in the middle of that the time when they were really starting to push back on abortion. So everybody was polarized. So I put one group on one side of the room and put the other group on the other side, and the pro-lifers and the pro-choicers. And I said, you have to give that person on the other side of the aisle the right to be wrong and let them find their own way. This is a right the opposing person should grant the person they believe is wrong, because the person believed to be wrong is on a journey to truth. And no matter how bad you want to convince them of their error, they will resist till they can see. Your insistence that you're right may drive them even further into your wrong. And if your attempt to use harsher means or work to demonize or obstruct that person from exercising or pursuing their rights, you are simply playing God in their life. And that's a right you don't possess. Allow their God to work in their life, not you.
Sounds like a marriage.
Insightful, and actually, that is so true. It sounded exactly like a marriage. Insightful, brother Jack. Thank you for that. We're going to get busy this morning. We have like I said, a special show. Speaker of the title of the show today, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Yes, he is a theocrat. But we're going to start today with a story. It's not a happy story, but it's a story that gives one resolve. You know what we talk about on this show? We don't just sit back and let things happen to us. We respond, but also we make sure that there are changes that are made to ensure these things don't continue to happen over and over and over again. Today we are honored to have Tiffany Rishal. I hope I said that right. If I said it wrong, please correct me. We are here to discuss her story about her son. It's a sad story, but in his mother's strength, changes are going to be made. Anyway, good morning, Tiffany. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate this.
Well, look, before we get started, I like things to be personalized. Tell us a little bit about Jalen.
Um, as you know, my son was murdered last year, April the 27th, 2022. It was during the daytime, and Jalen they were going into the neighborhood to serve a warrant to Jalen. As he got entered into his vehicle, they basically followed him. When they followed him, they I guess they went probably maybe about 2 minutes down the road, and then the undercover police came after them. The guy that was driving the car put on his emergency lights, and he drove maybe about 20 miles per hour to get to safe haven. Once he got on a certain street, I think it was Josie Street, they did Houston Police Department did a pit maneuver. At the beginning of the pursuit, the officer said he will not live to leave the neighborhood. This the statement that
Okay,
he
let's
made.
stop. Let me stop you right there. On the officer's cam, in his own voice, he said, "Your son will not live to see the end of the day."
Yeah, he basically said he will not leave the neighborhood.
Okay, got it.
And once he made that statement, I guess he was getting ready to do whatever in the car, and they did the pit maneuver, turned Jalen them around, which were facing Officer Shane Privet, the vehicle Shane Privet was in. Shane Privet was on the passenger side of the undercover police car, and Jalen was on the passenger side of the car that he was in, which was a black SUV. Jalen got out the car. The police got out the car, which is Officer Privet. Officer Privet said, "Put your hands." Before hands got out of his mouth, he shot Jalen. After he shot him, he said, "Oh shit." Jalen falls to the ground. He was struck in the side of the neck. He fell to the ground. They handcuffed him, and then they dragged him. This is pretty much.
What do you mean by then they dragged him?
They handcuffed him and dragged him across the concrete, the sidewalk.
After being shot and after he'd fallen to the floor.
Correct.
Bleeding Correct. Out, and they handcuffed him first. Okay.
They handcuffed him first, and then they dragged him. So this is pretty much. I feel as though first aid should have been done on Jalen, but I didn't see it happening. They act like they want to know where he got shot at and put some bandage on it. I'm sorry, y'all.
I'm with you. I'm sorry you went through this. What gets me is it brings back all the memories of these types of. I'm sorry. I'm with you. It brings back the memories of how some bodies are in fact treated by police officers. But what you did, and this is the thing that makes us why I wanted to have you here. This happens in this country over and over again. And if we didn't have advocates like you, in this case, the mother, advocates like you, we wouldn't be able to make the changes. And you came out when we had a rally with regards to our district attorney, who pretty much got the officer no billed.
Correct.
You were strong to come and tell the story. The thing about it is nobody, one, deserves to be indiscriminately shot, and number two, nobody deserved to be treated the way they did after being shot. We're all humans. So what did you do after that?
Basically, we did a lot of protesting around the Houston area. Several of the groups came along to join us out of different cities. we feel like we haven't gotten the support in Houston, Texas to kind of, maneuver this around. So we had to deal with other activists in other cities. Black Lives Matter grassroots. We had the BLM from Houston grassroots also joined us, and it's a few other groups that joined us as well as we protest. And the first place we went was to Kim Ogg's office, where we protest one Saturday, where it was on a Friday. Excuse me. We protest on a Friday morning, and she stopped the protest by asking us to join in a meeting to let us know the process and the procedures of how it works. So at that particular time, we went up there and we listened to everything that everybody had to say. And the one thing that I made plain to everybody, it came out of his mouth. He will not live to lead the neighborhood was enough for me. At this particular time, we did not see the cam, but knowing that he said he will not live to lead the neighborhood was enough for me, because that's premeditated to me. I don't know about to anybody else, but he basically said what he was going to do in that message. In the time that they went to court with to the grand jury, Kimberly Clark made it plain to me that's not what he meant when he said that. And nobody knows what he meant, what he said, but him. So, of course, to save his butt, he's going to make...
Who is Kimberly Clark?
Kimberly Clark is one of the civil rights attorney for the district attorney.
So beforehand, she comes in to defend his statement, saying that's not what he meant.
Right.
Okay,
right.
Go ahead.
So with that being said, that's one of the things that I wanted to point out, that he said exactly what he was going to do. My son did not leave the neighborhood. And was he alive? He left it, but he didn't leave, breathing. They said
let's be clear, because for any other normal person, you make a statement, and a few seconds later, the statement you made about that person is dead. I think that's probative. I mean, so I don't think you are at all out of scope when you say, well, it seems to me like we understand what he meant, because what he said got executed. Now, Kim Ogg and their administration, they tried to tame you guys by or quiet you guys by saying we're going to go through procedures, and you all did attempt to go through procedures. Do I have that right?
Yes, we did go up there, and we talked along with my lawyer's assistant. We all went up there and we discussed the policies, the procedures, that how long it may take, what we have to go through, and all those things. That's fine, but why does it have to go to a grand jury? She could have made the decision to file charges right then and there.
Well, let me just be clear here, and I think you know this as well as I do. Ask Michael Brown. Ask the couple of guys in Minnesota who the cop shot. The cop shot after asking them to give them their license. We could go, blog statement after statement. There are certain bodies in this country, unless people start to admit that, it'll continue. But luckily, you got Benjamin Crump, who will ensure, like he has in many other jurisdictions, that these guys pretty much, whether they do it through the criminal process or the civil process, it'll be taken care of. Now, the one thing I should have said, your son didn't display a gun, show the gun had the implication of having a gun or anything when he got out of that car. Is that correct?
No, he didn't have a gun. He didn't show any kind of gun or anything, or he did not even go towards the police. We don't even know what he was going to do. Everybody think that he was going to run. However, we don't know what he was going to do because it was done within less than 3
Immediate
seconds.
second.
Right. So we don't know exactly.
And that is and that 3 seconds is on the tape that
Yes.
you can see. Officer gets out of car, officer points gun, officer shoots.
Correct.
You know, before we continue, Tiffany, I've always said I work hard. I do all that I'm supposed to do. I do all the right things. I'm saying this about me right now. There's nothing that I should fear. But anytime there is a cop behind me, every time I see an officer, my fear is he having a good day or not? Because somehow certain bodies are generally the victims. And if there are any officers listening after I'm done speaking to Tiffany, I would love for you to call in because there are certain things we would like to ask civilly, of course, of you. But anyway, Tiffany, so now Ogg then took it to the grand jury. There's a saying that people say all the time, and that is a district attorney could indict a ham sandwich if they so desire. This was taken to the grand jury, and what occurred?
The first time that it was taken to a grand jury, it was no action. Right around July, in July, and then in October on the 16th, they started the grand jury again with the case. And mind you that Jalen was in a vehicle with one of his friends, which was one of the witness that did go into the grand jury. They basically said that Jalen reached down into the car at some point. Well, we didn't see that part, that he reached down. So I'm not understanding if he reached down. Let me see that part to where he reached down into the car, and the police claim, which Officer Privy claimed, that he thought he saw a black object. Jalen had a black bag on his arm. He had a black bag, which it wasn't a black bag. It was gray with black around it. And he had his shoes in his hands. So I'm not sure where the black object. Now, when they said that they opened the bag, they said that Jalen had a gun in the bag. I have not yet seen that either. And I do have his items that he did have after they came up with the no bill this particular time. So when you look at the items, the shoes was brown. The bag was gray with black trimming. So I'm not understanding where it comes, where his thinking or his mind says that he's seen a black object. So this is the reason why they no billed it, because the police said that he was afraid of his life and he seen a black object. He seen Jalen reach back in the car and he thought it was a black object. So now we here as a no bill, and to me is unacceptable because it was plain. You look at the video, it was clear. It was nothing that is. Every time I looked at the video, it's the same video, and nothing that I seen different from the first time I seen the video. So I'm not understanding why it wasn't an indictment out of this situation. The only thing that I can say that it wasn't presented at their best.
Well, there's absolutely no doubt of what you just said. Like I said, a district attorney has the ability to indict a ham sandwich. That is a stain. It is so prevalent that it's a known fact. Now the other thing is we decided as a state that we were going to be a cowboy laissez-faire gun carrying state. So whether your son had a gun, which he didn't, but whether he had a gun or not, this is a gun carrying state. And the officer never gave him the opportunity to say, yes, I had a gun. Yes, I don't have a gun. Same thing happened with the guy in Minnesota. The guy in Minnesota, no, not the same thing, different. The guy in Minnesota had a gun. And he told the officer, I have a gun. The officer said, where is it? I tell him. He says, give me your license. He said, may I give you my license? Yes. And as he reached for his license, he lost his life. So I want to thank you first of all for the courage for what you're doing, because what we need is to have accountable DAs, not DAs that are pretty much the lawyers for police officers, but the DAs that are the enforcement agent for all citizens under which they operate. And this is definitely what you're telling me, what we don't have in Harris County, where there is a distinct bias towards officers, whether they be good or bad. And like I said, I can't, personally, my job is to stay away from law enforcement, from the criminal justice system, because we still don't have district attorneys out there that are willing to do their job for cops that are rogue. Anything else you'd like to add before we close this segment, Tiffany?
The only thing I'm requesting is for them to reopen. My demands is for them to reopen this case and take it back to the grand jury. I don't know if that would ever happen under the office of Kim Ogg, but
it will not. Yeah.
Yeah. So, my thing is we can't go out here as police, be the judge, the jury, and the prosecutor. And that's, is a lot of things in this situation happened, was a lot of red flags, and it just wasn't right. The pursuit wasn't even, to me, when you go into our communities, what type of solution you have, what are you going in to do? If you going in with killing on your mind, of course that's what's going to happen. So what are we doing in the communities to stop police from going in and killing up our young men and our young women? This is ridiculous. As you say, this is happening all over the world, and at some point it has to stop. Enough is enough, and I'm just not gonna stop. I'm not gonna, Jalen's birthday was December the 2nd, Saturday. So I'm still kind of trying to grasp, him not being here for his birthday. He wasn't here for Thanksgiving. This guy get to go home to his family. This guy get to go home to his kids. Well, I didn't get to have that. And then plus he has a 7-year-old daughter. At the time he got killed was 6. So, Jayla has to deal with not having her father, for these holidays. So for you not to follow in and indict this guy is really devastating for me and the family. And we're not going to stop. We're going to continue to do what we need to do to get charges filed. We have been to the the Department of Justice. We have already filed paperwork with them, and we're just going to continue because something needs to happen here. Something needs to happen. And before this happens to anybody else, we're going to continue to, stand in the gap, for those that are dealing with things happen in the prison out here, things happen all over the world. We're going to stand in the gap for each other.
Tiffany, you just said for you and your family. Let me say it's for you, your family, and for everybody else. The work that you're doing also matters to everybody who has any kind of encounter with police officers. And we should state this police officer, it's not like he hadn't had some violent incidences before. Where I think he was, wasn't he indicted before for breaking somebody's socket or something like that?
Yeah, in 2017, he had an incident where he went out to I don't know exactly what it was, but it's some type of drug case, and a young man, he pretty much handcuffed the young man, and he kicked him in the eye and messed up his socket, and he was indicted for that. In 2019, Shane Privet went to another grand jury where they no-bill the situation, where they, got him off. So here we are again. We're in the same place. 2022, he killed somebody. So what does it take?
Well,
what does it take? Y'all gonna wait till he kills somebody else or hurt somebody else on the street? What are we doing here? It just don't make sense to me. It doesn't.
when you get off with something, it becomes so much easier to do it again. Well, look, thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right here at KPFT 90.1 FM Houston. Tiffany, I'm very sorry for your loss, but I am happy with your resolve to actually get something done. You have a wonderful rest of your day, my friend. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I tell you, every time I hear her story, it hurts. And the reason it hurts is, I'll be just frank here. I was driving into KPFT, the studio, a few months ago with a good friend that came in to do the show with me. And a police officer was next to me on a motorcycle. And the police officer, my friend, he was waving at the police officer, kind of telling hi or whatever. And I told him, I said, the comfort that you feel doing that, and I know it is, I shouldn't have to feel this way. I said the comfort that you felt doing that is one that I don't have. Because as far as I'm concerned,
seems like the tin cans and string are not holding up this morning. Egberto,
okay, no, that's that. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. That's probably when I made the transition. That's when I made the transition. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Now, you were telling us a good story here. Go ahead and tell us that story.
Yeah. Right. So I'm driving into the studio with my good friend who's going to do the program with me, and he sees the police officer on a motorcycle next to us, and he's kind of waved at the police officer and smiling. I guess they may have had eye contact. I'm not sure. But while that was his reaction, and a reaction that was a pleasant reaction, when that officer was next to that passenger window, my heart, and he couldn't see this, but my heart was in my throat. That is my general reaction to be in the presence of any officer, whether they be white, black, blue, I don't care. Because my experience and the experience that I see with officers is a crapshoot. In other words, if they're nice, you're good. But if they're having a bad day, your body means so much less. Doesn't matter if you're a professional, an author, a book writer, an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, it doesn't matter. Right here in Kingwood, we had a judge jogging, and he was treated like an animal. Of course, he sued. But understand it for all our listeners right now. Understand that stories like this hits a certain way. And when I heard her story, my thing is, thanks for doing this, because maybe more people who got harmed by the system, if more people who got harmed by the system constantly hit the system, it'll make life safer for everybody, for absolutely everybody. So thank you very much, Tiffany, for having the courage to come out here and discuss this, because I tell you, as you were speaking, as you were crying, as you were, articulating what occurred with your son, understand that it hits us all. Understand that it hits us all. Anyway, folks, give us a call. Telephone number 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Would you like to make a comment on the previous story, or do you want to go directly into the other story right away? 713-526-5738. Anyhow, without further ado, while I wait for calls to come in, I'll go ahead and let you hear the story about Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, the theocrat. Let's get busy, and here it goes. Turns out Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is nothing but a autocratic, a theocrat. And watch what Ayman Mohyeddin and his two guests had to say about him, because I think, unlike many other programs, they really go into detail as far as what it means having an autocrat like Mike Johnson leading the House, and what would it mean back in, or next up in 2024. Check this out.
The hate and extremism within the GOP isn't just coming from Donald Trump. It is coming from other party leaders, including the newly minted House Speaker, Mike Johnson. New reporting from CNN reveals that Johnson wrote the foreword for a 2022 book by a Louisiana blogger that endorses the far-right Pizzagate conspiracy and contains homophobic slurs towards Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Johnson said of the book, quote, "I obviously believe in the product, or I wouldn't have written the foreword, so I endorsed the work." Now, this comes after a stunning and terrifying report from the outlet last week, which unearthed a series of interviews highlighting Johnson's extremist views. Take, for example, last year, just a month before Roe versus Wade fell, Johnson compared abortion access to a, quote, American Holocaust. Here's Johnson in his own words.
It is truly an American Holocaust. I mean, the reality is that Planned Parenthood and all these big abortion, they set up their clinics in inner cities. They are, they regard these people as easy prey.
And after Roe fell, Mike Johnson defended Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas's suggestion that rulings on same-sex marriage and contraception should be reconsidered, saying some laws should be, quote, cleaned up.
There's been some really bad law made. They've made a mess of our jurisprudence in this country for the last, several decades. And maybe some of that needs to be cleaned up. And what Justice Thomas is calling for is not radical. In fact, it's the opposite of that. We finally have a majority of originalists on the court.
It appears that these beliefs, which he has professed to hold now for decades, were sharpened during Johnson's decade-long association with Alliance Defending Freedom, a faith-based organization that litigates in favor of laws and policies that undermine LGBTQ rights. Let's bring back Fernand Amande and Paulo Ramos. Fernand, I'll start with you here. What does it say that someone with this track record, proudly owning this track record, one of the most powerful political figures in our country, is the Speaker of the House?
Well, Ayman, it's very similar to what we just talked about in regards to Donald Trump. We cannot sugarcoat the reality of what and who Mike Johnson is. Behind the editor's oakley-dokley countenance, you have someone who is third in line to the presidency today, who is a theocrat, who does not believe in American democracy, has made that very clear, as we saw or are about to read in even greater detail in the revelations to come from Lynn Cheney's book. The open, transparent architect of the effort to overthrow American democracy in service of Donald Trump without any respect for the laws. I think it looks like what it is, a theocratic again, fascist, who unfortunately holds the most powerful position in the history of the United States for someone who doesn't believe in the tenets that underpin the constitutional republic.
I think you're totally right on that word theocratic. I don't think that word is used enough to describe some of the American politicians that we see now leading the country and making these decisions based purely on their religious interpretation that affect all of us. Paula, I want to talk to you about Johnson's ties to this theocracy, if you will, that he envisions America to be, this religious extremist on the right. In addition to the ADF, Johnson, according to Semaphore, is also friends with Pastor Tony Perkins, who leads the Family Research Council, an organization that has been labeled as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. How concerning is it to see the House Speaker have ties to these extremist groups?
How concerning is it? It's concerning because in that America, someone like me, a gay woman, doesn't exist, doesn't have rights, right? In Mike Johnson's America, I am considered someone that is unnatural, dangerous, evil, is someone that is less worthy of him, someone that doesn't deserve the same rights that he has. And so it is that I don't belong in that America. So even within that, right, even understanding the extremist beliefs that he holds about people like me, about people like you, Eamon, about women, even within that, the most concerning thing is truly understanding his beliefs around what it means to govern and understanding that someone like him on our screen believes in Christian nationalism. Right. So he fundamentally doesn't believe in the separation between church and state. Right. He believes that everything among us should be infused with God. And the problem and the danger is that he is not operating in a vacuum. Right. He is operating in a country where over 50% of Republicans in this country believe in some version of Christian nationalism. Right. He is operating among members of Congress like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are openly calling for Christian nationalism. He's operating with a potential 2024 Republican candidate that wants to see someone like him govern and that is considered a savior for Christian nationalism. So that is a danger that perhaps, again, in less than a year, we may have this Christian nationalist as a Speaker of the House and an authoritarian figure in the White House. And what does that future tell us? And where do the three of us fit in that future?
I tell you what really concerns me about Mike Johnson. When it's time to count up the votes, whether he tries some sort of machination in the House at the time that the votes are to be counted in 2024, or actually it will be in 2025, right? On January 6, 2025. So we have an autocrat in power. Will he remain in power? One hopes not. We'll see. We'll see if we get a new Congress. We'll see if people come out to vote. We're going to have a lot of work to do because having behind the scene little Trump in office and the possibility of having Master Trump in the White House is not something I think anybody is looking forward to. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Anyhow, folks, let's go ahead and get to, let's start with Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, come on in.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
I am doing fine. Talk to me, sir.
I would like to comment on the lady with her son that was killed by HPD.
Yes, sir.
I think we need accountability for the police officers, and that's not happening. Anywhere in the U.S., that's not happening. They get away with murder on camera. And personally, I got 5 sons, and I got another thought that's not good that I think they're driving us to, that we need a group of black men. When they kill your kid, I think he should be killed. His family should feel that pain. That's just my thought.
Okay, that's not a civil society, right? I mean, I understand revenge, and guess what? If you lose your son, that is what you want to do. Society is here to hold back those carnal things that we have to continue to maintain a civil society. I hear where you are, and I know the pain that, or I shouldn't say, I can empathize with the pain that that Tiffany is going through about Jalen. I can empathize with Michael Brown's mother. I can empathize with Philippe in Minnesota. I can empathize with all these people who were wrongfully murdered by the cop. Is the solution to, first of all, take it out on the cop's family? No, it's not. They didn't do anything. Likewise, is it that we want to go ahead and get the cop? No, what we want the cop to do is pay for what he did and get them, in my opinion, and get them off the force. Like, in my opinion, the guy who killed her son. Yeah, go ahead.
Should not be a police officer. You're right, but that never happens. Right. They always get off. They always get. Derek Chauvin was convicted on George Floyd. Luckily, they do these things on camera. I myself had assault on a police officer charge that I did not do. I did not touch these officers. They came in my house and beat me up, and then they write up this crazy report that I assaulted the police officer.
Well, let me tell you something. Anthony, no police report, and to every police officer out there, if you test your heart, you know we're telling the truth. I don't think any police report should ever be trusted. Remember what the George Floyd police report said about natural causes and death. If that girl wasn't taping it, what would have happened? Remember what the police report says over and over again in incident after incident. Remember the incident where the 5 black cops killed that young man. The police report looked nothing like what the cameras showed, beating the holy what out of the kid. So it's a police thing, and you know, we racialize this, right? Police live in their own, and by the way, we need the police, don't get me wrong, but we need to extricate the bad ones.
I agree.
And that is not what's occurring. But when you see what has occurred, police has a way of operating irrespective of race, so let's get the race out of there. But the part where race makes a difference is the bodies that they maim. They maim a whole lot on a percentage basis by those who they think are worth less. The people that they think of less human of. That is what the statistics show. That is not a figment of anybody's imagination. That is what the numbers show. Anyway, thank you so kindly, Anthony, for calling. Let's go ahead and go to Richard. Come on in, Richard. How are you doing this morning?
You know, I usually don't listen to the show, but I heard Tiffany on earlier. I think that case is going to it's still has a federal. It's on the federal courts also, if I'm not mistaken. So she still has a federal lawsuit against the police here.
Right.
Also on that case, it's important to note that grand juries are important. We don't show up for grand juries. We don't when they indict and have a grand jury, people of color usually either don't show up or don't participate, and that's a problem we have also with the grand jury dealing with the your new year and dealing with police. Only 1% nationally are indicted or even charged for any type of incident that goes on. That's the national statistic. Probably a little bit more, but probably 1 or 2% at the most. So you got to look at that also. But we have to look at gun usage. And a lot of people, just because you can carry a gun, there's rules and laws that you have to follow for having a gun. You just can't just have a gun in your car. You got to know the law. You got to know the rules. And that's another thing that's not happening. You need to go back and look at, because I heard you blaming the district attorney. The district attorney has a lot of pull when it comes to the grand jury and how it's shaped and who comes up and I've been on a grand jury for the whole year, so I know how it goes. And people of color usually are not there. But one thing that's important to note is that the district attorney should have more leeway, but they got pressure from law enforcement who they have to listen to a lot of the time, and they have to get a lot of their information from law enforcement. So they're less likely to piss them off. They're more in tune now with the community than they ever was. If this happened 10, 20 years ago, you wouldn't even have an indictment. I don't think. But
well, she didn't get an indictment. She got a no. She got a no bill.
I'm just talking about in general. I know about that case.
Okay.
But
gotcha.
Gotta look at one thing. I'm gonna let you go. One thing I want to point out is looking at Harris County. The Harris County Commissioner's Court. I've been telling everybody they passed this money contract to send prisoners. These people aren't even charged, and they're using private contractors, a contracted prison in Mississippi to send people that don't have money to bail out of jail. If I had money, I can bail
Richard,
out of jail.
Richard, you're correct about that. So I got to run to the other call, but you're correct about what the Commissioner's Court did, sending them to Mississippi. What's interesting is I think there's a civil rights case right there because not being here local prevents them from being able to get the right kind of legal support anyway. But we'll talk about that another time, Brother Richard. Thank you so kindly for calling in, my friend. All right, let's go to Samantha. Come on in, Samantha.
Good morning.
Good morning, Samantha.
Good morning. I was going to comment on something we were talking about yesterday on local politics, but since Tiffany's case, since y'all went on with Tiffany's case on the police brutality, I'll comment on that. But basically, I was thinking that there's sort of like a process that's been happening when, which is what we've come forward with, from the last 50 years or so, and in civil rights with police brutality, and which I'm not seeing where with the Democrats or with more of the social Democrats, how they're going to really address it, because there seems to be a process when somebody is killed by the police, it automatically gets picked up by an attorney and automatically gets sometimes put onto a civil rights case, and then it gets picked up. I mean, it's really a process. Now, I know that the George Floyd case was a turning point, a big turning point, and they actually arrested the white officers that killed George Floyd. So it was huge, but there's been a process that when that happens, and it's called when it happens, that they actually get, their hearing, they get a fair hearing, they get justice, they get, there's a lawsuit, and they get money. The family gets a lot of money. George Floyd's family got a lot of money when he was killed. Don't forget that. They had to pay out. And then during that summertime, there was back-to-back cases where a lot of black kids were killed by the police. It was like back-to-back. It was on TV for, wasn't it for months or something? I remember that. It was like
there was a. But let me just say one thing, Samantha. What you hear comes out on TV. They happen to be in certain markets where it makes the story. What I realized after doing some research during the Michael Brown case, during the I forgot the guy in Minnesota, the guy in Alabama. Is that there's so much of this that occurs that goes unreported. Poor people that don't even try to seek. They talk about, the police done kill my kid, and that's the end of the story. If you go look at the stats, you see that it doesn't even match what we find occurring. But anyway, go ahead and tell me your point so I can get to the other caller, my dear Samantha.
Yeah, there's sort of like a lesson to be learned that it is something that's being processed. So there's a lot of prevention we can get into avoiding that happening to a family member, because a lot of it has to do with money. You can see, I really noticed in George Floyd's case, the family got so much money after he was killed. he had been homeless and all this kind of problems that Tiffany's son was going through. He had a mental health crisis and all these kind of problems. So, that's kind of like what we have to look at. And it's come around where you can see that it's a process. The police get seen on TV. Yeah, it makes a story, and it's really a big thing. It's not something you have to say, suddenly it happens. This is America. It's been going on since the 1960s. So you have to see how can we avoid, getting involved at all in the first place, because it's going to be a process, a lawsuit, a lot of money gets exchanged, the family gets paid.
Okay.
Who lost their loved one. I'm not saying
All
Tiffany
right.
is going after the money or something like that, but I'm just, mhm.
Thank you, Samantha. I appreciate your call. All right, let's go ahead and go to
Thank you.
Josie. Come on in, Josie. Thank you, Samantha. Come on in, Josie.
Good morning.
Good
First
morning.
of all, I wasn't going to mention good morning what the lady just said, but I think she is talking about the money, and it's kind of shaming the family, or that just didn't sit right with me. But I wanted to go back to the mother who lost her son, and just talking about the grand jury. Because I served on the grand jury with Judge Ted Poe, and that's something that many people do not know, and I wouldn't have known the process had I not been submitted to be on the grand jury. And I didn't know that your name had to be submitted by someone political or a judge, and then your employer has to agree to give you all that time off. Well, most employers aren't going to do that. You can kind of begin to look at what that grand jury looks like. And it's important for us, for the mom, to maybe think that way. I think I brought the social worker part into the grand jury, which many on the grand jury did not understand or would not have thought about different assets of cases that we heard had there not been a social worker and then another female minority.
That is so important. That is so important, Josie,
Follow me?
to know that.
Yeah. So I think we have to.
That is so important to know. Yeah, I thank you for that. But let me just say one other thing real quick to you, Josie. Where it comes to Samantha and the money, I can understand where some people talk about, well, they're going to get money anyway. But if I have a sick daughter or sick whatever, there's no amount of money for somebody harming them that can take away the hole in the heart. When Samantha talks about it's a process, she's not incorrect. It's correct. But it's a process that's occurring because of some ill that occurred. So I mean, but look, no amount of money can come in between my loved one and somebody harming them. And I think you feel the same way, Josie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so kindly for your call, Josie.
The grand jury. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so kindly. Let's go to Derek. Come on in, Derek. How are you doing this morning?
Hey, good morning. Kim Ogg came in and she said that her office would be impartial to the police. And my question to her is, what happened to you, Kim Ogg? I want to pull some words from Minister Farrakhan. Justice never sleeps. Justice go to bed with you, and justice will wake up with you. I say to Sister Tiffany, keep the pressure on, because no amount of money, of worthless money, paper money, will satisfy your soul. See, that sister is absolutely right. This man can go home and sit up and eat chicken, lamb, and beef, or whatever he eats, and laugh and talk about being the water cooler hero of the day. But yet, you violated another human being. This ain't nothing that you can gloss over. You took a life. And because you took a life, therefore that life and that yoke is going to be around your neck for the rest of your life. Alberto, I did not like what I had heard, what you had said. This man actually kicked a young man in the eye socket. and broke
Yeah, he
glass
kicked
out.
it out and broke it. And yeah, and he first got indicted, and then they took it to another grand jury, and he got no bail. So I mean, yes. But Derek, you get the point, and thank you for understanding. I need to run to Harry, so thank you for your
Thank you, bro.
commentary, Derek. All right, let's go ahead and bring Harry in. Harry, sorry for our time. We just got a lot of calls at the end, so give it what you have to say in
He's
30
real quick.
seconds.
He's real quick. For Philando Castile is who you were talking about, who got killed up in
Philando
Minnesota
Castile.
by that.
Yes.
That's the guy who got killed. And my soul goes out to Tiffany. Keep fighting
Tiffany.
for your son. Justice for your son. The mother whose son got killed.
Right.
Hello.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
correct, Harry. I gotta
yeah.
run. Give me 10
All right.
seconds. I gotta run to
Okay,
Brian.
we'll talk about
Thank you, brother.
Okay.
Brian, come on in. You got 30 seconds, Brian.
Always 30 seconds, right? Did you check into the subpoena that Special Prosecutor Jack Smith took out on Twitter? Yeah, the Washington
No, I did not.
Examiner, yeah, okay. Well, check out Washington Examiner, December 4th, 23. New York Post, 12/04/23. National Public Radio even did a piece on it. And here's part of what it says. All of the content, records, and other information relating to other interactions between subject account and other Twitter users from October 2020 to January 2021.
Got it. Okay, I'll read it. Brian, I got to go, but thank you so kindly for bringing that up. We'll talk about that later. I need to jump to the studio. All right, great. Come on in, Brother Howard.
All right. Mighty fine show you had here this morning. Very, very emotional. You can feel it through the radio. Jack, what you got for us? Well, okay. Jack has forgotten what he was going to tell, which is, common around here.
Well, we are all getting up there.
Me. Yeah. All right.
Anyway, folks,
see you tomorrow.
I want to tell everybody, thank you, callers. Tiffany, story. Your story will help quite a lot of people. Thank you, callers. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Howard and Jack. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.